Welcome to A-Level OCR ICT podcasts from Zigzag Education.
These podcasts are intended to be a different way of revising and absorbing information, whether it be on a school computer, on an MP3 player, on the bus home, or at home as last-minute revision. It is specific to the OCR ICT Module 3 specification, although in places gives you a little more information than you might need to be more interesting and to give context. We recommend that you listen to each question, then pause your player to give you time to think about your answer before continuing to listen to the answer provided. Good luck, and we hope you enjoy listening.
What are the stages of systems life cycle? In order.
Problem definition, investigation and analysis, design, implementation, testing, installation, documentation, evaluation, and maintenance.
What is analysis?
Analysis is the process of assessing the client's need, resulting in the production of a list of client requirements and interpreting that list in terms of inputs, processes, and outputs.
Why might a new system need to be developed?
The old system may be out of date and inefficient. New technological developments or changing user requirements may mean that new features are needed for the system. The user may want their system to be more flexible. What are feasibility studies?
Feasibility studies are studies conducted to ensure that it is possible to construct a solution to a problem, and that if it is constructed, it will provide benefits that will outweigh the cost of development and maintenance.
What is technical feasibility?
This checks that the technology is available to implement a solution and that the solution will fit in with the technology currently in use at the client's organisation.
What is economic feasibility?
Economic feasibility ensures that a solution will not be constructed that will be too expensive for the client's organization.
What is legal feasibility?
The legal restrictions applied to the solution must be considered. For example, would the solution meet the data protection laws of all of the countries that the system would be used in?
What is operational feasibility?
Operational feasibility means ensuring that the new system will not be incompatible with the way in which business is done at the organisation.
What is schedule feasibility?
Schedule feasibility means ensuring that the solution can be completed within the desired time frame.
What is the problem definition?
The problem definition consists of a description of the problem that requires solving and also includes a brief description of the new system that will solve this problem. The problem definition is the first, and arguably the most important, stage in the system's life cycle.
What is distributed processing?
Distributed processing deals with software systems split up into parts that run simultaneously on multiple computers communicating over a network.
What is a GUI?
A graphical user interface, which uses graphical components to input data and output information. The term WIMP is associated with this, meaning windows, icons, menus, and pointers.
What qualities would a good user interface have?
A good user interface is consistent, safe to use, communicates effectively with the user, and is efficient to use in that it does not require the user to perform many actions in order to achieve a simple task.
What are the advantages of a command line interface?
It may allow an experienced user to perform tasks more quickly, as it gives the user a huge amount of control over the computer. It only requires a keyboard for entry. Because it has no graphical elements, it can be faster to run on older computers than a GUI. Command line interfaces can be run within a GUI.
What are the disadvantages of a command line interface?
Commands have to be learnt, and the user needs expert knowledge of the system in order to use it to its full potential. It would not be very suitable for new users or for carrying out certain types of tasks. Imagine trying to edit a video using a purely text-based interface.
What is an advantage of a form-based user interface?
Users can enter more information in a shorter length of time, as it is custom-built for the data entry required. It also has a more user-friendly and intuitive layout, and so is easier for a user to understand. Forms can provide simple data checking and can make sure that all the required data has been entered by the user.
What is a disadvantage of a form-based user interface?
The user can only input data according to the layout of the answer boxes. There is not much flexibility.
What is an advantage of a dialogue user interface?
It limits the user's choice to a selection of options so the user knows exactly which response to give.
What is a disadvantage of a dialogue user interface?
Only the pre-programmed selection or options are available, and it may be frustrating to answer dialogue question after dialogue question.
When creating a tailor-made data entry screen, name 3 design considerations that need to be taken into account.
The design should be clear and easy to understand. It should not contain poorly chosen colors or be difficult to read due to font style or size. Data items that need to be together or are related should have their relative input fields positioned together on screen. The interface should efficiently use the screen space available. The limitations of the users should be considered.
What is the role of the client in systems analysis?
The client is the person that commissions the production of the software, as well as the person who will maintain it or oversee maintenance.
What is the purpose of considering user perception in interface design?
Certain colours, symbols and keys are often associated with a particular meaning. For example, red is almost always used as a warning or to highlight information of great importance.
With regard to user interface design, what is the purpose of consistency?
It allows users to adapt easily to screen instructions and to confidently predict the location of information and navigation controls. Users can gain transferable skills from learning how to use one computer package. For example, if you learned how to use Microsoft Word, You might find it easier when trying to learn other Microsoft Office programs because the layout is very similar.
With regard to user interface design, what is meant by relevance?
The design should have concepts familiar to the user, follow real-world conventions, and make the information appear logical.
With regard to user interface design, what is meant by supportiveness?
It should inform the user as to what is going on, provide feedback in a reasonable time, and provide commands or instructions to enable them to progress, get help, or leave the system.
With regard to user interface design, suggest what is meant by visual and audible cues.
Images should be relevant. Error messages should be expressed in plain language and constructively suggest a solution.
With regard to user interface design, what is meant by memory and learning?
The user should not have to remember large amounts of information from one part of the dialogue to another. Instructions for use of the system should be visible or easily retrievable whenever appropriate, and each step should progressively build on what has gone before.
What are the factors influencing user interface design?
The task that the interface is to carry out, user abilities and requirements, the volume of data to be input or output, and any particular design requirements such as a colour scheme. What is a mental model?
A diagram used to explore and explain the thought processes of the user.
What is the Model Human Processor user interface design tool?
A tool which describes interaction purely in terms of perception, cognition, and motor component times.
What is the purpose of the Model Human Processor?
To give insight into interaction cycles and offer a building block on which to base more comprehensive models.
What is a prototype?
A prototype is a simple working model of the system that contains only limited features. Prototypes are often used to demonstrate the final system's functionality.
Why is it important to design a system around the user's mental model?
The system should be natural to use, so that the user can quickly learn and use the system with minimal frustration.
What are the advantages of developing a system based on natural speech?
It makes the system accessible for the visually impaired and reduces the risk of work-related health issues such as RSI.
What are the disadvantages of developing a system based on natural speech?
The system may be limited, as speech isn't always the best way to express certain information, such as diagrams. It could disturb other people working in close proximity, and it is limited by language barriers. Voice recognition technology is improving, but still doesn't always work correctly.
What is the major problem with using written natural languages to input data into a computer system?
The computer processing the data may require human input to refine the query, helping it sort and search the data, for example, thereby making the process slower and more costly. It also requires much more processing than using commands, as the system has to interpret the natural language into commands. There is also the chance it will not interpret the natural language in the way the user expected.
What is a network?
A network is the connection of computing devices to allow them to communicate data and share resources with each other, such as peripherals and software.
Suggest the main advantage of computer networking.
Hardware, software, and data can be shared and easily backed up. For example, in an office, all the computers could share one printer. It also allows for easier communication between users of the network.
What is a peer-to-peer network?
A peer-to-peer network is one in which there are no dedicated servers or hierarchy among the computers.
What is a LAN?
A local area network is a network that is confined to a small geographical area and could be connected by cables or wireless connection. For example, you might have a LAN at home, school, or in a business.
What is a WAN?
A wide area network is a network that is spread over a larger geographical area, perhaps even across different countries. The primary example is the Internet, but this is not the only one. A WAN could be linked by cables or satellite communication. A WAN could be linked by cables or satellite communication.
What is a virtual network?
A network that is managed by software and does not bear much relation to the underlying hardware links.
What are the benefits of prototyping?
To detect missing functions, demonstrate the feasibility of the solution, and clear up any misunderstandings between the client and the designer.
What is the World Wide Web?
A system of interlinked hypertext documents accessed via the Internet.
What is the Internet?
A global system of connected computer networks that exchange data by packet switching using the standardized Internet Protocol Suite, TCP/IP. The Internet literally means the network of networks.
What is an intranet?
An internal network only accessible by an organisation and its employees and those that manage the network.
What is an extranet?
A version of an intranet that is also available to partners connected with the organisation to assist with communication and sharing of data. Extranets need to have strong security in place.
What is meant by client-server architecture?
Client-server architecture refers to using a single computer to provide a service to all other computers on a network, resulting in workstations performing less processing, as they do not need to provide this service for themselves.
What are the advantages of a client-server network?
The advantages are dependent on the type of service being offered. Centralized file storage means that backup and security of files can be more tightly controlled, and the use of a single server to perform processing makes updating and expanding the system easier, as only a single computer needs to receive the upgrade. It also allows other workstations to be free to dedicate all of their processing power to performing their individual tasks.
What are the advantages of a peer-to-peer network?
They are more robust as there is no central server to fail, losing all of the data and services for the entire network. It is cheaper to establish and costs little, if anything, to administrate.
What are the disadvantages of a client-server network?
The client-server model requires specialized hardware and software to maximize performance and efficiency, which itself requires management from administrators with specialized knowledge. A small organization may find this prohibitively expensive. Also, if the main server goes offline, then none of the clients will be able to access data or complete tasks.
What are the disadvantages of peer-to-peer networking?
Peer-to-peer networking can make backing up data difficult, as there is no central file storage, and data cannot be backed up from workstations which are offline at the time. They also require each workstation to perform all of its own processing and to be capable of performing all of the tasks it needs to perform completely independently.
What is bandwidth?
In ICT, the term bandwidth describes the speed at which data can be transferred. It is important not to confuse this with the different definition of bandwidth that is used in physics. Bandwidth is sometimes called the bit rate and is measured in bits per second.
What is evolutionary prototyping?
The final solution is gradually developed by producing multiple prototypes, each one closer to the finished product.
What is WAP?
This stands for Wireless Application Protocol, the world standard for wireless communication on mobile phones and other wireless terminals.
What is a router?
A device which joins networks together at the network protocol layer and determines the path a data packet should take on a network.
What is a hub?
A small, simple network device that allows multiple computers to communicate. They are inexpensive and are often found in home networks and small businesses.
What is a switch?
A network switch is a small hardware device that joins multiple computers and network segments together at the data link network protocol layer and assists with the performance of the network.
What is a repeater?
A device that receives a signal and retransmits it at full strength in order to reduce signal degradation over long distances.
What is a wireless access point?
A device which allows wireless devices to connect to a wired network.
What is a bridge?
A device that connects multiple network segments at the data link layer.
What is a gateway?
A network node equipped for interfacing with another network, such as allowing a LAN to connect to a WAN.
What is a network interface card?
A printed circuit board in a network device which allows it to communicate over the network. It converts the data in the station so that it can be transmitted along a network.
What is a server?
A computer that provides a service to the rest of the network, such as a file server, which is the main point for the file storage on a network, printer server or communication server.
What is pilot prototyping?
Testing the feasibility of the design through the prototype in a specific area.
What is a file server?
A server which stores data files centrally so that clients anywhere else on the network may have access to them.
What is the purpose of network software?
To allow workstations to communicate, to manage files, data and security of the network and allow several users to process data simultaneously.
Name two main functions of all network software.
Management of communication and data security.
What is a proxy server?
A server that swaps the source IP addresses of all outgoing network traffic with its own. You can use a proxy server to keep your IP address anonymous on the internet. You might want to do this to stop your browsing being tracked or to help prevent against hacking.
What is a print server?
This is a server or part of a server that controls printing.
What is a backup server?
A server dedicated to making backup copies of files on the network and to store accidentally erased data within the entire network.
How is infrared radiation used to transmit data?
Infrared is a type of electromagnetic wave with a slightly longer wavelength than visible light. To transmit data, the infrared source is varied in intensity to represent binary code as a digital signal.
What is fibre optic?
A means by which data is communicated over fibre cables in the form of light pulses, giving greater speed, reliability and security than other methods.
What is Bluetooth?
A wireless protocol for exchanging data over short distances from fixed and mobile devices. It's most commonly used to connect mobile phones to computers, other phones and headsets.
Explain how Bluetooth works in terms of wireless technology.
Bluetooth uses a radio technology called frequency hopping spread spectrum. It divides up the data being sent and transmits chunks of it on one of up to 79 frequencies, rapidly changing the frequency to make it difficult to eavesdrop and to avoid a single frequency of background radiation from disrupting the entire communication.
What is modelling prototyping?
Building a model of the user's requirements to gain a better understanding of the requirements.
What is fax?
The transmission of scanned-in hard copy documents across a telephone line, which connects to another device with a printer attached to receive it.
Explain the operation of a fax machine.
An original document is scanned into a single bitmapped image. This is coded and transmitted as electrical signals through a telephone system. The receiving machine decodes the received image and prints a paper copy of the document.
How does email work?
The user has emailed client application software that allows them to manage messages. The client email server holds the user's mailbox and allows the mail to be passed on to other clients through the internet.
What is a bulletin board?
A computer system running software that allows users to connect and log into the system to post messages visible to other users.
What is video conferencing?
The live transmission of video and audio signals between two or more persons via the internet.
What is IRC?
This stands for Internet Relay Chat, which is a form of real-time internet chat or synchronous conferencing.
What is ADSL?
Asymmetrical Digital Subscribers Line, a data communications technology that enables fast data transmission over copper telephone lines.
What is PSTN?
The Public Switched Telephone Network, a network of fixed-line analog and digital telephone systems and includes mobile telephones.
What is ISDN?
Integrated Services Digital Network, a broadband method which allows voice and data to be transmitted.
What is meant by a leased line?
Any dedicated bandwidth service delivered over a leased connection.
What is throwaway prototyping?
Once the prototype has achieved its purpose, it is thrown away and not developed in the final implementation.
What is the disadvantage of leased lines?
They can be very expensive and there is the risk of data being intercepted by the leaser.
What is the advantage of leased lines?
They have a very high bandwidth, even over long distances.
What are the advantages of satellite transmission?
High transmission quality and reliable coverage over a very wide geographical area.
What is broadband?
A signalling method that includes or handles a relatively wide range of frequencies. If used in a network, all data is sent to all devices in the network, for example in a ring or bus network.
What is baseband?
Baseband describes systems whose range of frequency is measured from 0 to a maximum bandwidth or highest signal frequency. If used in a network, then only the station that the data is sent to receives it, for example in a star network.
What are the advantages of cellular mobile phone networks?
High capacity, lower power usage than satellite transmission and good mobile coverage in most places, providing that there is a transmitter nearby.
How does a cellular network operate?
It is a radio network arranged into cells. Each cell consists of one or more transmitters.
What is the advantage of satellite mobile phone networks?
No need to be close to a transmitter. Satellites are generally more reliable than transmitters.
What are the disadvantages of satellite mobile phone networks?
Satellites are expensive to launch because they are very heavy. Hills, etc. can interrupt the line of sight and thus cause interference. Propagation delay can also affect the quality.
What are protocols?
Sets of rules governing how data is transferred, compressed and presented over networks.
What is a design tool?
A set of organizational tools and/or software that assists in the creation of the solution design. In the OSI model, what are the layers?
Application, presentation, session, transport, network, data link and physical.
In the OSI model, what is the purpose of the sessions layer?
It assists with the dialogue between two computers, regulating which side sends the data and when and how long it transmits the data for.
What is standardization?
It is the development and agreement of technical standards. Software and hardware that use standard protocols and data formats will be able to communicate with each other more easily and effectively. There are two types of standard: de facto standard, which is not formally agreed upon but is the most commonly used, and de jure standards, which are legally binding industry standards that all manufacturers have to work to.
What is meant by a code of conduct?
A code of conduct is a set of guidelines covered by law and produced by an organisation to make employees aware of the rules they are required to obey when working with computer systems.
What is an application server?
An application server is a server which provides applications over a network, so that individual workstations do not require them to be installed locally.
What is infrared used for?
Infrared is used for wireless communication between two devices over a very short range. It is most commonly used in TV remotes and other types of remote controls. It was also used for data transfer between mobile phones until it was largely replaced by Bluetooth.
What are the advantages of being able to communicate from almost anywhere on Earth?
News services can give almost instant coverage of global news. Business can be done on a global scale. People can communicate with their friends and family whilst in another country.
Explain the limitations of using ICT in society.
The majority of ICT hardware and software is developed for non-disabled English speakers. This excludes a large number of people from effectively using ICT.
Discuss the use of networks at home and at work.
At work, networks have allowed communication between employees and company departments to be conducted instantly, reduced the reliance on paperwork, and have allowed hardware and software resources to be easily shared. At home, networks can allow several family members to use a single internet connection and to share files such as music.
How are distributed databases stored in more than one physical location?
A single database may be duplicated at each site, so a complete copy is always available. A database may be split with some of its data stored in one location and some in another, so as to share the workload. Suggest some design tools.
Gantt charts, PERT charts, organizational charts, DFDs, tree diagrams, maps, and graphs. What security restrictions must be put on distributed databases?
Database fragments must be secure, as must the locations where they are stored. Communication between the fragments must be encrypted.
What range of services are offered by digital television networks?
Textual news services such as teletext and digital interactive services such as the BBC's Red Button service.
Explain the importance of ensuring that information is exchanged accurately in an organization and how it is achieved.
It is important that all employees within an organization have up-to-date information, as otherwise their work will be reduced in effectiveness and relevance. This can be achieved by the use of computer networks, which allow central file storage and electronic communication, such as email.
What are the advantages of using software training systems?
Users can work at their own pace with no time constraints. They can create their own individualized path of learning and repeat sections if necessary.
What are the disadvantages of using software training systems?
Temptation to cheat at assessments if unsupervised. Difficult to ensure students are taking in information. students who are struggling might find it more difficult to ask for help, and material is often difficult to refer to at a later date.
What is the disadvantage of using the Internet with regard to training materials?
The student cannot be sure of the author and reliability of the materials.
What is the advantage of having online help to assist with training?
Users receive immediate assistance.
Name the different types of distributed database.
Client-server, 3-tier architecture, N-tier architecture, distributed objects, loose coupling, and tight coupling.
What are 3-tier architecture databases?
The system is designed in 3 modular layers: the data tier, which handles the database, the logic layer, which performs operations on this data, and the presentation layer, which passes the processed information to the requester.
What are N-tier architecture databases?
Databases where operations are broken down into n number of layers, where n is a number greater than 3.
What is the benefit to a business of contracting an ICT designer?
Contracting an ICT designer allows access to a wider range of knowledge and expertise and should reduce the development time of the task. When the project is finished, the business no longer has to employ them.
What is client-server distributed computing?
This is where some functionality of the system is handled by a server on behalf of all clients, rather than requiring all workstations in the network to handle all of their own tasks independently.
What is tightly coupled distributed computing?
This is when a task is divided up into parts, and each part is given to one of a cluster of machines that closely work together. These run the shared processes in parallel. At the end, the processed task is put back together.
What is an expert system?
A software system which has the ability to emulate intelligence by using rules to match user input against a bank of knowledge in order to provide an answer.
What are the components of an expert system?
A natural language interface for the user, a knowledge base, a processor that can make logical deductions, and a way of outputting the conclusions to the user. What is a management information system?
A management information system, MIS, is a common term for the computer systems in an organization that supplies information about its business operations. Data for this process is obtained from internal and external sources, and the resultant information is output in a suitable form for the use of business management.
What are the components of a management information system?
Management information systems support transaction handling and record keeping in order to build up a wealth of information to help it assist management. It uses a database and enforces security.
What do the human resources of a system encompass?
The human resources of a system are any workers who process decisions or tasks, such as data entry clerks, network administrators, and ICT technicians.
Describe the characteristics of personnel, finance, and stock control systems.
Personnel systems store data on the workforce of an organization and manage their personal details. Finance systems handle the income and outgoings of an organization, such as payroll. Stock control systems keep a constant track of what goods are in a company's warehouse, for example, so that more goods can be ordered when needed.
Explain how distribution between databases can be carried out using different approaches.
Databases can be partitioned at each site, or entire databases duplicated at each site. A central database with remote local indexes is another option.
Suggest how technology has had an impact on the banking industry.
Customers can manage their finances much more easily using online banking and telephone banking services. ATMs, cash machines, are available in a large number of public places, allowing cash withdrawals to be made at any time of the day. Credit and debit cards can be used both in shops and on the internet, and have advanced security features such as chip and PIN. MICR, magnetic ink character recognition, can be used to make checks more secure and easier to scan in.
What is involved in implementation?
This is where the code that makes the software work is written by computer programmers. How have developments in ICT affected design and engineering?
There are now computer-aided design and engineering packages, programs that facilitate more accurate design of products, machines, and buildings.
What is GPS?
The Global Positioning System is a navigation system that provides location and time information in all weather, anywhere on or near the Earth, as long as there is a line of sight to 4 or more GPS satellites.
Describe the role of the client in a custom-written, computer-based information system.
The client specifies the needs of the system, and if it is the client that the system is for, they will also give further details as to how any current system works. They will outline the requirements of the final system, which will assist in the production of a test plan to ensure the system is working properly. They will also perform an acceptance test at the end of development, at which point the implementation of the new system is complete.
Explain how staff expertise, costs, benefits, and current systems affect decisions about upgrading or installing software.
For a new system or system update to be worth the cost of implementation, the benefits received from it must be greater. If the current system performs as well as the new one would, or the benefits are not considered great enough, an organisation may not wish to upgrade.
What is the advantage of custom-written software?
Only the required business features are included.
What are the disadvantages of custom-written software?
expensive to produce, more difficult to get assistance, and development can take a long time. Many have more bugs as it has not been industry tested.
What is the disadvantage of off-the-shelf software?
It contains features not necessarily wanted, and it does not contain features that may be required. Features which it does contain may not be flexible enough to adapt to the way in which business is done at that particular organisation.
What are the advantages of off-the-shelf software?
It is cheaper due to mass production, readily available, tried and tested, and support is readily available.
What is parallel implementation?
Running the old system and the new system side by side.
What is pilot implementation?
The new system is first introduced by parallel, direct, or phased implementation in only one of the areas at which it is targeted in order to act as a trial run.
What is the purpose of testing?
To make sure that the system functions correctly and to check that it can cope with the anticipated volume of data and users.
What is direct changeover?
Stopping the old system and replacing it immediately with the new system.
What is phased changeover?
Gradually replacing parts of the old system with the new system.
What is meant by system review?
Checking that the system performs as intended and fulfills all of the client's requirements, produces accurate results, relevant data, up-to-date information, and cost-effectiveness.
What is system maintenance?
System maintenance is the ongoing evaluation of a system once it is already installed at a client's organization and is in use. It addresses the need to resolve bugs and errors found within the system after it has been released.
What is perfective maintenance?
Perfective maintenance attempts to ensure that the system operates as near to perfect as possible in terms of efficiency. The system should be continually updated and improved.
What is adaptive maintenance?
Changes made to a system due to changing business or technological needs.
What is corrective maintenance?
Maintenance performed once an error is discovered.
Explain the need for a perfective, adaptive and corrective maintenance during the life of a computer-based system.
If a system is found to contain bugs and flaws, then corrective maintenance may be applied in order to fix them. If the system needs to be upgraded to stay relevant to a company who has changed the way they do business, then adaptive updates are necessary. If the system works but could be improved, then perfective maintenance may be applied.
What factors have to be considered when managing change?
staff capability, staff opinions and limitations, such as if a member of staff has not got time to attend training courses, and the provision of proper ICT equipment and its accommodation.
What is the importance of consultation, participation and communication when managing change?
Staff may feel that their jobs may be threatened by a new computer system and may resist any changes. By involving them in the change by consulting them, communicating the need for a new system, and where possible involving them in the development of the new system, they will feel the system is there to help them do their job, not replace them.
Name 2 types of documentation that should be provided with any working solution.
User manual and technical manual. What ethical issues exist with regards to ICT?
Issues exist regarding the professional and legal responsibility of the business, adhering to copyright and intellectual property legislation, the use of open source software, the use of surveillance, and the protection of and respect for people's privacy. ICT can also be used to distribute material which some people may find offensive.
What is the BCS?
The British Computer Society is a professional body and society that represents people working in ICT in the United Kingdom and internationally.
What is the purpose of encryption?
Encryption is the scrambling of data so that it can be conveyed or transmitted securely. It can be read but not understood by people who do not have access to the decryption key/software.
What is a virus?
A virus is a malicious software application which is embedded into other files, causing it to be executed when the files are opened with the intent of destroying data or corrupting the system.
Suggest some of the crimes that are common on the internet.
Fraud, copyright infringement, hacking, spreading viruses.
What is the physical security of data?
Using various methods to ensure data is both private and has integrity by restricting physical access to the computers and storage devices data is stored on, or installing such things as uninterrupted power supplies to keep systems running or able to shut down in a controlled manner during a brief power failure.
Suggest some ways security breaches in an ICT system can be minimized.
Do not leave workstations logged on or unattended. Ensure staff adhere to the code of conduct. Change passwords regularly. Do not use easily guessed passwords. Install auditing, antivirus and accounting software and set up levels of access.
Suggest some measures to protect ICT systems.
Administrators can set up physical measures such as locking rooms and limit access to computers to only those personnel with prior permission. Access to files and network locations can be limited.
What is right protecting a disk?
Protecting a disk so that data cannot be overwritten.
What is disaster planning?
Disaster planning is ensuring that a plan exists in preparation for terrorist action, natural disaster, sabotage, fire and theft that would affect an ICT system.
What is a user manual?
A manual which assists the end user in the operation of the system. It uses non-technical terminology.
What is risk analysis?
Risk analysis involves the identification of potential risks to an organisation's ICT system, working out the probability of such a threat becoming real, identifying the consequences of such action, and seeing how well equipped the organisation is in dealing with this risk.
What is a backup strategy?
A plan to ensure that if data is lost, regardless of the circumstances, valuable data can be recovered.
What considerations are taken into account when considering backup?
Frequency of backups, backup medium, such as magnetic tape, the location of the backup, the number of generations of backup required, the testing of the system, and who will be responsible for managing the backup process.
What are the threats to system security?
Human error, hardware failure, natural disasters, and computer-related crimes such as hacking or the deliberate damaging of data.
What is authorization?
Authorization is the term given to applying permissions to files, directories and user accounts, so that users cannot use a system if they are not allowed to do so.
What is the purpose of an audit trail?
To trace a transaction from when it is entered into a system until it is output from the system.
Describe some of the ways in which developments in hardware and software are being utilized by scientists.
Software simulations for medical science and population movement, for example, allows scientists to predict the spread of disease throughout the world and develop vaccinations for mutating strains of influenza in time for their annual outbreaks in winter. Hardware advances allow supercomputers to be developed which can run ever more complex models of the global climate, allowing weather prediction to become more and more precise.
What is the ACM?
The Association for Computing Machinery. It was founded in 1947 as the world's first scientific and educational computing society.
What are the advantages of belonging to a professional body?
Professional organisations allow for a congregation of like-minded people immersed in the inner workings of the industry who can gather and provide participants with access to a variety of opinions, ideas and knowledge.
What are the disadvantages of belonging to a professional body?
There may be high membership fees to join or stay in the organisation, and members may be too busy to attend regular meetings.
What is systems technical documentation, and what should be included in it?
This documentation is information for a computer-literate person who might be responsible for improving or maintaining the system. Typically, it might contain structure charts, flow charts, decision tables, and pseudocode.
Give some example uses of satellites.
Satellites are mainly used for astronomy, communications, navigation, reconnaissance, space exploration and weather forecasting.
What are the technological resources of a system?
Any computer hardware and software that is utilised by the system.
What is a technical manual?
A manual giving the technical requirements of the system, such as memory, operating system, etc. It uses technical terminology.
What should be included in a technical manual?
Memory requirements, installation and maintenance instructions, upgrade details, pseudocode, algorithms, and flowcharts.
What should be included in a user manual?
Sales and support, operating features, installation details, license activation, instructions, and system requirements.
What is involved in the evaluation of a system?
A system needs to be checked against the original requirements specification. Does the new system do everything that the user requires it to do? Is it reliable and easy enough to use?
What is involved in the review of a system?
Checking that the system performs as intended and fulfills all of the client's requirements, produces accurate results, relevant data, up-to-date information, and cost-effectiveness. What approaches might an analyst use when investigating a system?
Observation, interviews, questionnaires, and document inspection.
What are the advantages of questionnaires?
Easy analysis, speed of processing, and it reaches a wider population, as one set of generic questions can be given to a large number of people.
What are the disadvantages of questionnaires?
They provide a limited choice of answers. Not all sections can be investigated thoroughly using this method, and there are problems that do not have the opportunity to surface.
What are the advantages of interviews?
They provide one-to-one contact between the analyst and the users and clients, which allows hidden problems to surface. It allows for emotions and attitudes to be expressed, and it can identify workflow and bottlenecks in the current system.
What are the disadvantages of interviews?
Workers can feel threatened as they may feel that they are being spied upon or that their jobs are threatened. It interferes with business as the employees must take time away from their desk to answer the questions and is very slow.
What is the advantage of document inspection?
It gives a relevant picture of the workflow.
What are the disadvantages of document analysis?
Documents may be missing or out of date, thus providing gaps in business flow knowledge. They cannot show the workers' opinions on the way in which work is currently conducted.
What is the advantage of observation when planning a new system?
Gives the observer a chance to see what is actually happening in the current system. What is the disadvantage of observation?
Workers may feel uneasy or distracted being observed while they're trying to work.
Name 2 software development methodologies.
Prototyping and RAD.
What is meant by RAD?
RAD stands for Rapid Application Development. Systems are developed with little early design work. Instead, solutions evolve through successive prototyping with the client. Each time a prototype is created, it is reviewed by the client. If it does not yet meet the client's requirements, then it is refined further. Development finishes when the client is happy with the software that has been produced.
What is the purpose of test data?
To check that the system functions in the expected way when a wide range of different values are input to it.
What might a test plan consist of?
A test plan should include the items that need testing, the values to be used for testing it, if applicable, the expected results of the test, a field or fields for the actual result, and a field for any comments or additional information which may follow the test.
When is compliance testing carried out?
During the development or approval stages of the product.
What is acceptance testing?
Acceptance testing is performed by the end user to ensure the system functions as required before they approve payment for the project.
When is acceptance testing carried out?
Prior to delivery or installation of the product.
What is accuracy of data?
Ensuring that the data is correct, such as ensuring that a customer's address is still the same as the one on file.
What is validity of data?
Making sure that the data entered is reasonable, such as entering data numerically in a numeric field, where a textual representation is not acceptable.
What is module testing?
Testing that each unit or module of the system functions correctly and works independently of other modules.
What is system or integrated testing?
Testing to ensure that all the individual modules that a system is made from integrate correctly with each other.
What is alpha testing?
Alpha testing is the first type of testing that takes place after programmers have finished coding. It is in-house testing that is done by the software development company. At this stage, it is likely that there will be many known bugs that need to be dealt with.
What is beta testing?
Beta testing is when the product is released to a larger audience outside the software development company for testing. At this point, alpha testing has been completed, but the product is not quite ready to present to the end user.
What is unit testing?
As the name suggests, it is the testing of each individual unit of the system.
What is white box testing?
White box testing examines how different inputs are processed by the program before they produce an output. The name white box refers to the fact that the inner workings of the system are examined.
What is black box testing?
Black box testing tests as many different inputs to the program as possible to check that they produce the required output. The inner workings of the program are not examined, hence the name black box.
In testing, what is normal data?
Data that is entered into a system within the acceptable range and is of the correct data type. This data should not cause any errors.
In testing, what is boundary or extreme data?
Data that is at the limits of what can be accepted. For example, a system requiring numbers between 1 and 100 to be entered would have boundary or extreme data of 0, 1, 100, and 101.
In testing, what is erroneous data?
In the context of testing, erroneous data is invalid data. For example, entering a negative number when the required input should be positive.
In testing, what is a debugger?
A computer program that is designed to run through a program and identify any bugs, and then aid a user in resolving them.
Suggest some features of program testing tools.
Program testing tools, often included within compilers for software developers to use, usually include tools for monitoring the path of execution of a program and the variables it is using at any given time. This allows testers to slowly step through a program to check that each line of code is working correctly.
What is meant by software engineering?
The production of software in a structured way, including the programs and documentation.
What is meant by case?
Computer-aided software engineering, which is the use of software tools to assist in the development of software.
What is a benchmark?
A standard problem that is designed to evaluate the performance of a computer system.
What is the purpose of performance analysis?
Performance analysis highlights problems and areas that need to be improved within a program. For example, it might analyze the software's resource usage to ensure that it is as efficient as possible.
What is contained in the requirements specification?
Functional requirements such as a description of user and software interactions, and non-functional requirements such as performance requirements, quality standards, or design constraints.
What is contained in the system specification?
The aims of the proposed system, a general description of the proposed system, a detailed description such as timings, input and output, control and audit considerations, file specifications, processing specifications and test, and conversion plans.
What is the role of a project manager?
The project manager manages the development team and ensures that all parts of the development are progressing as close to the plan as possible.
What is the role of a tester?
A tester will develop and execute a test plan thoroughly, documenting the outcome of every test case so the test will show if the system is working properly under all circumstances.
What is the role of a computer programmer?
The programmer writes the code during the implementation stage of the system's life cycle.
What is the role of a website developer?
A website developer is involved in creating and/or maintaining websites. They will likely be capable of using scripting languages, programming languages that allow control of applications. Examples of scripting languages include JavaScript, PHP, and Perl.
What is the role of the database administrator?
They are responsible for all of the different aspects of the database construction, installation, use, and maintenance.
What is the role of the network administrator?
Administrators deal with the security and administration of the network, including the data storage and user accounts of all of the people who use it.
What are the characteristics of an effective ICT team?
They are able to cope with change, have good communication skills, problem-solving skills, initiative, organizational skills, interpersonal skills, and a methodical approach.
What is a systems designer?
Someone who manages the design process of the new computer system. What is critical path analysis?
A mathematical tool that helps schedule and manage complex tasks. It works by assigning the length of time and dependencies of each task involved in solving a problem, and finds the shortest path from start to finish. This allows people working on a problem to solve it in the quickest and most efficient way.
What is the advantage of using critical path analysis?
It finds the most effective and efficient path through the development process. If systems development does veer off track, it identifies the tasks that do not have other tasks depending on their completion, and others that can be delayed for a while.
What is the disadvantage of critical path analysis?
The disadvantage of CPA is that the relation of tasks to time is not as immediately obvious as it can be with other planning methods, such as Gantt charts.
What is a Gantt chart?
A Gantt chart is a diagram which helps to schedule the order in which tasks need to be carried out and the availability of necessary resources. It looks similar to a horizontal bar chart, with each bar representing a task awaiting completion.
What is the advantage of using a Gantt chart?
A Gantt chart has a very simple appearance, which clearly shows the order in which tasks need to be completed, by when, and what deliverables and milestones need to be completed. It is very useful for monitoring if a project is on schedule and identify areas lagging behind.
What is the purpose of an entity relationship model?
It is a diagram used to produce a model of data within a database.
What is the purpose of a state transition diagram?
A state transition diagram is a diagram which describes all of the states of a system, such as a finite state machine, and all of the inputs, events, and the activities undertaken during the life of an object in an object-oriented program. What is the purpose of a data flow diagram?
A data flow diagram graphically represents the flow of data through an information system.
What is the purpose of a flowchart?
To pictorially represent a task in a sequence of smaller steps and conditional tests.
How does a data flow diagram differ from a flowchart?
A DFD shows how data moves through the program, whilst the flowchart shows the sequence of tasks that a system completes. What is a systems analyst?
The individual responsible for identifying the requirements of and for the development of a new or upgraded system. They are also responsible for specifying and overseeing this development.
What is batch processing?
Where jobs are not processed until all the data is collected, usually at a convenient time such as at night. Jobs are entered and stored in a batch queue and are then processed without human interaction.
Where might batch processing be used?
In any system that only requires periodical processing. It is suitable for any purpose which is not time critical, as there is likely to be a delay between an update being made to some item of data and those effects being realized, for example, payroll and utility billing. A typical batch process example could be the calculation and printout of customer electricity bills.
What is meant by interactive processing?
Interactive processing provides processing for a transaction during the duologue between the user and the system. Where might real-time processing be used?
This is used in time-critical applications, such as a computer system managing a reactor in a nuclear power station, or the flight control systems of aircraft, where any delay in processing would result in disaster.
What is meant by real-time processing?
Real-time operating systems are designed to execute commands as quickly as possible with minimal delay. Outputs from the system should be fast enough to influence the next input.
What is a reactive real-time system?
A system that is controlled by sporadic intervention with the environment.
What is a single-user operating system?
An operating system that can only be used by one person at a time.
What is a multi-user operating system?
An operating system that can be used by more than one person simultaneously.
What is a multitasking operating system?
When the operating system can complete multiple tasks simultaneously. It can do this through time slicing or using multiple processors.
How fast is the processing time in batch processing?
The processing time for each job is relatively fast because no human interaction is needed. However, it is likely that there will be a very large number of these jobs to complete.
How fast is the processing time in interactive processing?
The processing time for each job is relatively slow because human interaction is needed to complete jobs. The speed ultimately depends on how good the user interface is.
How fast is the processing time involved in real-time processing?
Real-time systems must, by definition, process and respond within a very short time.
What is meant by transaction processing?
Transaction processing is where a transaction is processed immediately as it is created, and further transactions are not allowed until processing is completed. An example is performing a transaction using online banking.
Suggest 4 factors that influence the choice of processing mode.
The scale of the operation, the cost, the length of time that the computer is used for, the available hardware and resources, and how often information needs to be updated.